Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel, Poverty Hill Adventures. The plan today is to meet up with our friend Joe. I asked him to do a little talk about collecting turkey calls, but unknown to Joe is I'm going to try to surprise him with a couple of turkey calls that I got to gift to Joe. And let's see how the surprise goes. Joe just arrived, and I helped him carry in a few of his boxes of turkey calls, and I slipped the surprise in one of those boxes, and I don't think he saw me. We're at the archery club this morning, and I think this is going to be a fun day.
What do we have here?
Those are from your collection, aren't they?
No, not yet, but they should be. What do we got here? Oh, reminiscent of the era Chisholm, Raymond Chisholm, Ben Lee. Ooh. Nice up close work. Nice.
Joe, I picked up those calls last summer at Little Valley, at the Sportsman Show down in Little Valley that the Cattaraugus County Trappers put on. And I was thinking of you when I picked them up. They're both handmade, not production calls.
Oh, I can see that.
And I think they're pretty old, and I knew they were pretty cool, and I figured what better place for those calls to end up than in Joe's Turkey Call Museum. While Joe is unpacking some of the calls he brought, I want to show everybody what he's got laying out already. Just an amazing collection of calls. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Joe just brought a few today, so you can only imagine what the collection as a whole looks like, but this is going to be a fun morning.
Hey everyone, my name is Joe. I am a turkey call collector. I don't really know when I started to really collect calls. I can tell you I bought my first turkey call back in 1988, 89. I purchased that call from the Quaker Boy Company in Orchard Park next to the stadium. And what started as a mere few calls and an accumulation started with more calls, and that turned into a collection, and that collection turned into an outright addiction. So it's fun. I enjoy it. You know, I've always tried to tell people, you know, everyone has to have a hobby or something they like. I've always said this: love what you do, but more importantly, do what you love. And this is just a sample of what I love to do. The calls that I have in front of me today are calls that I carry in my turkey vest, which I need a caddy for. I don't know what I'm going to grab or what I'm going to use. There are just so many different call makers out there. There's not hundreds of calls. There are literally thousands of turkey calls that are out there. Now, I have started collecting what you normally would find in store shelves, production calls, and they work. They really do. There's nothing to say that you cannot take a turkey with a $10, $15 call. It's been done for hundreds of years. You know, it started out really simple. People made their own calls. I have a lot of homemade calls in front of me. I have custom calls and whatnot. someone, I often get this question, well, how many do you have? I couldn't tell you. You could hold my feet to the fire. I couldn't begin to tell you. And for me, it's not important. I have calls in different areas of the house. In fact, the house is like a giant showroom. My call collecting has taken me on many, many different places and many travels and met many people at the National Wild Turkey Conventions over the years and the people's homes. I purchased Earl Mickle's first book, Turkey Call Makers. That came out in, I think 1994. It was published. I was living in Montgomery, Alabama at the time. I bought a signed copy at a local sporting goods store for $25. Turkey hunting was big down south, it still is. Turkey call collecting was just really getting underway. And before it got to be a fashionable thing, everybody just called it bird hunting down there. And there was a lot of call makers. I had no idea how many call makers were out there. Purchased this book and opened up my eyes to the hundreds of call makers that are out there. It's just incredible. And they all, Pennsylvania alone, just incredible. I don't think you can go to any town in Pennsylvania or there's not a call maker there. Alabama's full of them. And locally here in Washington, New York, there's a lot of call makers. Some are now gone. But we had so many call makers. I didn't even realize we're just, in my situation, literally down the street. And that's how I got to meet Mr. Kevin Rabel from Buffalo Hunter Game Calls. I happened to cross one of his calls he had donated at a local NWTF banquet. I was outbid on that call, and I did manage to get one of his business cards. And then I realized he only lived literally around the corner from me. So I gave him a call, and I ended up purchasing a couple from him, and we've been friends ever since. There's a lot of call makers, like I said, in the area. One gentleman that comes to mind who lived in Linwood, North Tonawanda, Linwood Street, North Tonawanda, was Mike Roman. Mike Roman had been a gunsmith by trade, and he was a call maker. He started off making calls that maybe weren't that great, but they worked. And I have several of his calls in front of me here. He made a hewn out box call. He experimented with different woods and different configurations. Just a nice sound. This room was perfect for it. He made them in different variations, feather touch, Stradivarius. And these are some of his original ornate ones that have car feathers. And this gentleman was the original owner, Mr. Gary Gaines. I purchased this from him on eBay a year ago, and I could never get one of Mike's more ornate calls. He was in the process of making one for me, which is this one right here. He passed away. And he couldn't finish that. But these calls, usually he made them out of black walnut that was over 100 years old. Ooh, that has a nice sound to it. And then I love the folksy artwork he did on his. Relief carved, painted, just a phenomenal, phenomenal sounding call. Oh, and on a really clear bluebeard day, they do carry out in the woods. I mean, and then of course, real quickly, Mike had two students, they're brothers, Audie and Kim Tipton. Audie made this for me. And got my name in there. And this call has called a lot of birds in, and it's most pleasurable to play this thing. Just a nice sounding call. There are all types of turkey calls out there. Earliest ones that someone should probably try out and master are friction calls. And those are slate calls, peg style calls, box calls. Box calls, oh my goodness, they come in so many different configurations. This is on the larger side of things. This is not a pocket call. This is a piece of lumber. This is all 100% cedar. This was made by a gentleman, Mike Ashley, in, I want to say, Lynette, Georgia. I went to see him. I had him sign Earl Nichols' original book, and he didn't have any calls, and he didn't have any for sale. He had a business where he was fabricating windows and doors, and she was a sheet metal fabricator, but he didn't have any. And I have this one in cedar, I have one in cherry, and I have one in walnut too. All of them have different sounds.
Joe, speaking of different shapes and sizes and whatever, I see one here. It's almost directly in front of you, and it looks like a violin.
Oh. So, and this is what I've argued with people. These are not only calls. These are just instruments. We play to the wild turkey. We play that spring song every spring, and hopefully, maybe if we're lucky, we may fool them. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But to get the full, and this is glass, and there's sweet spots on this call. Just fine. This is for up close work. I gotta find that sweet spot. I had a friend of a friend. He was a musician, an accomplished musician. He specialized in woodwind and string and just gorgeous, gorgeous instruments he played. He gazed upon my collection in the display cabinets and he said, "What are those?" I said, "Well, those are turkey calls." And then he showed more interest. I took him out, I showed him, I played a few. He said, no, these are not calls. These are instruments. You're playing for the turkey. And he was in awe of the wood combinations and the way they put together and the ornations on them. So let's start talking about different types of calls. Suction calls, wind calls. Some I've played with, I enjoy tremendously. They're made out of different wood, bone, cane, all different variations have been used. This is, I want to say, African ebony. This is a brass ferrule. This is a hen wing bone. This is like a Henry Davis style call, one of the famous makers. It's cupped like so, and you suck on it. It's like sucking on a straw. Got a nice sound that really carries nicely. It can be out of different things. This is chala cacti. It's been infused with a resin. Sounds different species. Let's change it up a little bit. And another famous maker, Mr. Ralph Permar. This is loud. I like using it in the woods. On a windy day, it cuts through everything. You know, people say, well, why would you want to use a trumpet call? Because they're different. You can use it real subtly, loud, soft, you bring them right in. This past spring, if anyone caught the video from Gobbler's Roost Adventures, I had a wonderful hunt with Mr. Kevin Raybold. I didn't carry a gun, and let me tell you something, that's good because I had about 40 pounds of calls. But I was his cameraman, and we were just going in an area where he had a reasonably good suspicion that a bird should have been roosted. Brought the calls out there, laid them out. You know, we started in the morning, calling nothing, no birds. So we decided to set up, and we just started filming my collection. And wouldn't you know, we got one to go. And within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, probably 20 minutes, I think the tape was like 22 minutes long, we get a bird on the ground. It was a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Joe, everybody's got a go-to call. Everybody's got that call that they, it's their go-to. It's one of their favorites. How about yourself?
I've been asked that question a lot of times, and as a go-to call, I would have to say I would go with a couple, either one of my box calls or a particular slate that I've had for many years. And, through trial and error, and it wasn't that I'm promoting one call over another, but I will say this. This is a Blodgett call that I purchased back in the 90s at the Erie County Sport Expo at the fair. Hand carved. This thing, I've had other slates. I've used other slates, different types of configurations and whatnot. The turkeys like this. They answer to this. I've called in more birds silent, and they're vocal with this particular slate call. And I don't know if it's a combination of the striker in the slate itself, but it's just a nice call. It purrs. It cuts. I could do real soft. Or just turn it up. Blodgett slate. But, we have some of the originals. I happened upon this, it's original D.D. Adams slate call. This is a crystal call. And it's a little more subtle. I received this from another collector. He'd never used it. He purchased this in '87. And gotta scuff this up a little more.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
A lot of hunters use a diaphragm call, a mouth call. Do you think that maybe the turkeys get accustomed to a diaphragm call, and that's where a box call or a slate call or a wingbone call has an advantage over a diaphragm call?
That question has been presented to me on several occasions, and having hunted turkeys for many years, I can tell you that I believe that is the case. I believe to an extent that diaphragms, although they're convenient, and yes, they're effective because you just pop them in your mouth, walk in them, your hands are free, that's great. But I think turkeys do get accustomed to certain higher pitched tones, such as the diaphragm mimics, and the sharp cutting. It's great, but sometimes you need to mix it up, and it would behoove you to have something else in your arsenal. Yeah, the big thing too is the birds in this area, and I use the birds in this area for example, because this is where we hunt. Okay, they are educated. It's populations are down, predation is up. So you got to give them something that they possibly haven't heard before. I mean, I think that having a box call, a slate, or some other type of call in your arsenal would be the best thing to do.
Speaking of turkeys hearing it before, what are your feelings on scouting before the season and calling when you're out scouting and not hunting?
Double-edged sword on that one. Okay, scouting is always good to give you an idea where the birds are or have been recently. If you're going to do any calling, you want to do some soft tree yelps in the morning, is locating. But do everything sparingly. Do not tip the birds off. Do not let them bust you. Because anybody that's turkey hunted for an appreciable amount of time will tell you, you're going to get busted more than you're going to have success. That's just part of it. It's happened to me, and it doesn't matter. I've been hunting birds since '91, and I'm gonna tell you something. I had beginner's luck. '91, I went out. I hadn't scouted. I had gone to a place where I'd seen them the year before deer hunting. Went there, had a few Quaker Boy calls, sat down, heard a gobble, yelp, yelp, cluck, cluck. There's a bird standing in front of me. Boom. All things said and done, 15 minutes later, I become a turkey hunter. Never happens like this. So, in closing, someone may inquire or be interested as to how to get into collecting calls. Well, there are different venues you can go. What my biggest suggestion to do is to find any books on the subject matter first. Talk to someone that hunts turkeys. Maybe pick up a sport yourself if you're interested. Talk to somebody in a local sporting goods store. I used to haunt the Quaker Boys store when they were freestanding for a long time. And when Dick used to work out of his garage, I used to bother him quite a bit. Wherever anybody who was willing to sit down for 10 minutes, I just talked turkey. I was very fortunate to meet some people locally and get to know them. National Wild Turkey Federation Convention. Blow your mind what's out there. Just amazing how many makers are out there, and they'll sell their wares. Garage sales, check those out. Estate sales, yard sales, check them out. I have found calls mixed in with kids' toys. They were noisemakers. Well, they turned out to be pretty valuable calls, actually. So it just takes a little time. Or if you want to find out, somebody who collects calls already, if you know somebody, talk to them. I mean, I'd be more than happy to help you get to where you need to be and get started.
Joe, I appreciate you sitting down with the calls today. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, we just touched the surface on the subject.
Oh.
And I'm going to ask another big favor of you, and maybe we can get together and do some future videos on calls and get a little more in depth into some of the calls. Like I said, I thank you so much for this, and it was just an amazing introduction to collecting turkey calls.
Anytime, and we're going to have to. And I suspect it's going to take at least a couple more videos to really do the topic matter justice. There is so much out there. I mean, there's such a rich history. Turkey hunting, turkey call collecting, it's true Americana. I mean, it's great because people collect a lot of things, but these are tangible, and I can use them to hunt with, and I do. I mean, some people ask me, yes, absolutely, that's what they're for. That's what they were made for. These ones.